This time on the Families Matter Most podcast.
The lying can start as a legitimate character flaw, and at some point it can move into a habit. It's just a bad habit. At some point it can become just an instant reaction. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you yourself remember struggling with lying, and it got to a point where it was such a habit for you that you would just say something and then be like, why? Why did I say that thing? I don't know why. It just flew out of my mouth.
Every time Jen Dean speaks, I can see hope, knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and love.
When Jen Dean speaks about parenting, we make sure that we are there to listen because we know we will get valuable advice.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean.
She doesn't just give skills for us to be better parents, but she teaches us how to reach our children's hearts. And at the end of the day, that's what truly matters.
It's time for another case study. These have been really fun to do, and I'm loving the feedback. They're very practical, super helpful. This one is all about lying and helping Amanda and Tim reach the heart of their 9-year-old daughter, Rach, who was struggling with being honest. She was struggling with dishonesty and kind of some of the things that we did to help her work on that, to build the character of trustworthiness, truthfulness, honesty, all of that. So this is podcast number 82, and it's about teaching our kids to be honest. Lying is one of the more challenging behaviors as parents. Now, don't feel like if your child struggles with lying that you've ruined them. This is horrible. Don't feel like your kid is a sociopath and now they're going to, be in jail and they can't be, productive humans and their lives are over and it's all your fault because you clearly missed the mark. It's funny how we can do that as parents. Hey, please, lying is a typical behavior that kids struggle with. Many kids do. This is common. But what I will say is I feel you when you say, but it's so hard and nothing seems to be working. You're right. It's really challenging because lying has so many different motivations. Like, what is the root of it? We gotta get underneath the lying and figure out, why does our child choose to lie? What is in it for them? Because it's working. Let's be honest. It's working for them. So what is the motivation? What is the intention? What is the root underneath? And when I worked with Amanda and Tim, they were at the ends of their rope. They were so mad. Nothing was working to stop the lying. They found themselves kind of at their wits' end. They had no more patience. They were saying things like, "Oh, again? You're going to lie again? You're going to lie. Of course you're going to lie. You can't even tell the truth about that." They were so frustrated. They found themselves losing it very quickly. They had very low patience over it. And so it almost was making it worse, they found. In addition, the lying seemed to be not just becoming more frequent, but becoming about increasingly ridiculous things. She was lying about things that nobody should even lie about. They would say like, did you eat toast for breakfast? Yes, I did. Well, no, she had something else. It doesn't even matter. And the mom and the dad said, she lies about things that we don't even care about. Like, we wouldn't even care what her answer would be. And yet she's lying. So they feel like this has now reached a whole new level. And, they're just the worst parents ever. And, Rach is really struggling and she must have the worst character ever. And it's just getting worse and she's becoming a worse person. And what do we do here? Okay, let's just take a breath. I share that because you might be going through something similar. And it's very easy to get stuck in our head and we start spiraling and feeling like this is out of control and it's just getting worse and it's all our fault and it's never going to get better. Let's take a breath. Typical kid behavior? Yes, we can work on this. Is it challenging? Of course it is. As I mentioned, because it's tricksy. Lying is tricksy. It's difficult. So it's a big deal and we do need to work on it. I like to tell parents lying is the worst thing. It's the worst thing in your house. So whatever it is, like there's meanness, there's fighting, there's hitting, but lying in my home was the worst thing. Because it's so hard. Once once our kids don't have the benefit of the doubt, once I can't trust their word, then I feel like we don't really have much to stand on, right? It's harder to do anything else if I don't have their trust and they don't have mine. So lying is a very, very big deal. So yes, both of these are true. It's typical common issues with kids. And yet that frustration you're feeling that this is a really big deal and we need to work on it. Yes, that is also true. So we're going to work on it. Amanda and Tim, I helped them take their breath, get control of themselves, and then we started investigating what was going on. Now, this is where custom private coaching is really, really beneficial because there's lots of reasons for lying. Lying is tricksy. But in this case, we discovered a couple of things that I think might be insightful for you as you're working with your kids. Number one, we discovered, not really a surprise to Amanda and Tim, that they have a bit of an anger problem. We discovered that they have very little patience around certain times of day, like supper time, like morning, like bedtime. We discovered that they have very little patience for things that they would consider mundane, like did you put your backpack away? Did you, get your agenda out? Did you finish your homework? To them, it was just another tick off of a to-do box of a long list of tasks that they had to do. And so for them, it was just like, just do it, get it done. And when it didn't get done, they had very little patience for that. And it progressed very quickly to anger. And this is important to note because we discovered something that Rach really didn't like her parents yelling. She was uncomfortable. She responded in such a way that she avoided her parents when they were frustrated because she didn't want to get yelled at. And that's kind of understandable. Who wants to get yelled at? To the point, though, that she would just lie and say whatever they wanted to hear. Can you see how this might work in her favor? She just started saying whatever it was she thought, she guessed, she assumed her mom and dad wanted to hear in the moment. And to the point that it didn't even matter how mundane or ridiculous it was. If it was about, did she have toast for breakfast? If she thought they wanted her to say yes, she would say yes. Just say the quickest thing, just to get it over with, just to keep everyone happy, just to avoid the yelling, just to avoid having her parents mad at her. So this is a case of where working with Amanda and Tim, the parents, helping them have healthier strategies for dealing with frustration and the stress of life and managing the home and their own marriage. This is where we could help them come up with some better strategies to reduce the amount of anger and frustration in their house. That we noticed made a difference for Rach. Now, there was still lying. Please, I wish I could say, just one quick conversation and everything was perfection. There was still lying, but we did notice a reduction in the tension in the home. We noticed that there was less frequent lying. It was still happening, but not as often. Okay, so that is some progress. So that is one piece of it right there. We also noticed that Rachel was super motivated with screens. She loved video games. She loved YouTube. She loved TV. And so we noticed that after school and supper time was particularly challenging for her because she really wanted to have time around screens. And she would tell a lie to do whatever it is she could do to have more time in front of the screen. So if it meant lying about putting away her backpack, she would lie so that she could immediately have the screen. So, okay, so that is an issue. That's really motivating for her to the point that she's willing to risk her relationship with her parents, or I guess the feeling of the relationship with her parents. She's willing to risk getting yelled at, getting in trouble to try and get to that TV, to get to the screens. Okay, good to know. So how can we separate that? So what we did is we started a no screen until 4:30. So she would come home at 3:30, between 3:30 and 3:45. There was no screens until 4:30. So we just took that right off the table. It's now not even going to be a pull for her because there's no screens till 4:30 anyway. So let's remove that temptation that clearly was too much for her to manage, right? She wasn't able to resist it. So we're just going to remove that from her because she's 9 years old. So now there's no screens, no YouTube, nothing until 4:30. So now she's got this period of time. We noticed, okay, now she's able to resist that temptation. She's able to deal with her backpack, and the lying reduced a little bit more. Okay, so here's some progress. And then one final strategy that I think you could use, no matter what kind of lying you're facing, is I want to encourage you to know that even if lying maybe started because she didn't want to get yelled at, maybe it started because she wanted to have screens and so she wanted to get to YouTube as quickly as possible, so she lied about her backpack. Whatever it is that your child might be struggling with, the lying can start as a legitimate character flaw, and at some point it can move into a habit. It's just a bad habit. At some point, it can become just an instant reaction. So Rach, over time, she became more and more used to lying. It became more of a habit for her. So at some point, if you just went to her and said, Rach, did you do this? She might just lie so quickly she hardly even realized she did it. It just came out of her mouth. And maybe you're talking to your kids and they said that. They said, I don't know why I said this thing. It just flew out of my mouth and I couldn't stop it. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you yourself remember struggling with lying, and it got to a point where it was such a habit for you that you would just say something and then be like, why? Why did I say that thing? I don't know why. It just flew out of my mouth. So at that point, it's a habit. Here's a strategy. You can talk to your kids ahead of time. Try and uncover what's going on. Try and look at your own selves. Maybe are you unintentionally contributing? Maybe there's an anger problem to work on, and I can help you with that. Regardless, though, you can talk to your kid, just like Amanda and Tib did. They said, hey, Rach, we're working on lying. We're working on being honest, and you're making tons of progress. This is something we're getting better and better at, but we recognize that this is a habit now. So we're going to help you. Every time we're going to ask you a question, we're going to stop first and remind you. So it would look like this. Tim and Amanda would say, hey, Rach, I'm going to ask you in a moment if you dealt with your backpack and your lunchbox. So now remember, in our family, we tell the truth. In our family, we're honest. We always tell the truth instead of lying. It's always better to be honest and truthful. That's how our family rolls. So I'm going to ask you right now, Rach, take a second, take a breath. Remember who you are. And I'm going to ask you, did you deal with your backpack and your lunchbox? Remember, honesty is always better than lying. And that, my friends, has been the number one by far strategy to reduce lying in your kids. Just giving them that pause, that reflection, that, oh, wait, that's right. At that point, friends, you're going to know what's happening because your child's going to take a breath and then they are choosing it. So you've given them that moment. They've had that pause. You've given them a beat. And now you're asking them the question. They're going to choose how to respond. And either they're going to choose to be honest, even when it's hard, because that's how we are. We are truthful. We are honest, even when it's hard. Or they're going to choose to lie, which means that this wasn't part of the habit. This was intentional. They are lying in order to try and get something or to avoid something, which sends us back to square one of investigating what's the motivation, what's going on. All of this is fixable. We're going to keep coming at it from all the different angles as long as it takes until we see this reduction. And I have seen so many kids work on this. I really want you to take this in and use this strategy in your own home, because I don't want our kids to feel like something's wrong with them. I don't want them to feel like I'm just a liar and I'm just stupid and I just will never get better at this. Right? It's always going to be this way. I can't stop. I don't know what to do. Something's wrong with me. I don't want that for your kids. You don't want that for your kids. So Rach felt that way. She didn't want to lie, but yet she caught herself in it so frequently. We helped her come up with a solution. We uncovered what was behind it. We stopped the lying behavior. We dug out the roots, and at the same time, we worked on the habit. So that's what I want you to take away from this. First of all, that lying is really tricksy. And it's difficult. And if you're struggling with lying, and if you can relate to Amanda and Tim, where I said they were at the ends of their ropes and they found themselves with very little patience, they were saying kind of some harsh things like, oh yeah, now this again. They found themselves not being very patient. They were so quick to move into frustration and anger. And I don't blame them because it is really difficult and challenging. What I would say is get help, reach out, book a strategy call. Let's talk about this. Let's come up with a plan. Private coaching is the way to go here 100% because every child is different. This is not going to be an ABC, follow these 3 rules and everything's fine. This is going to be customized. What's going on under the surface? How are we going to work on this together as a family? What are mom and dad going to do? What are kids going to do to reduce the frequency of lying? So that's what I want you to take away, is that it's tricksy and it's hard. And I think lying is a really good case for getting private coaching. I really, really do. I think lying is one of those ones that it's helpful to have a third party that can kind of see past some of our challenges and look for patterns everywhere and is willing to see the things, right, that maybe we don't see, because we always have things that we don't see. So that's what I want you to take away. Secondly, that there's nothing wrong with you or your kids. Lying is a common issue. It's a struggle. It's a challenge, 100%. It's difficult, but it's common and we can work on it. The third thing is no matter how much you're struggling, no matter how stuck your child might feel in the habit of lying, it's not too late. We can find a solution, we can uncover what's going on, and we can work on it. Please don't give up. We can do it. So that is a case study. That is an example of the kinds of things that I do with families every day. It is absolutely my joy and my privilege. Thank you for joining this podcast. If you haven't, check out the previous case studies. This is podcast number 83. We have 82, which is about a mom who really wanted to lose weight, and she struggled for years to lose weight and then keep it off. But we did some work together and figured out what was going on, what was holding her back, what was keeping her stuck. And she got some great results. Podcast 81 is a case study about Tara, a self-proclaimed control freak, and how she felt she was super critical of herself, of her partner, of her kids, and what we did to help her have some more peace, some more acceptance and joy. She wanted to have more joy and be happier and be more positive, and how she worked on that. So keep doing the work, my friends. Book a strategy call. And maybe you're like, this is time. This is my time to do the work on myself. I want private coaching. I want help for me. I want to actually take care of my own heart. I want to deal with some of the stuff in my own life so that I can show up better for the kids. Maybe listening to this podcast, you're thinking, oh, I think I have an anger problem. You're not alone. I had an anger problem. I've worked on this. So many families have worked on this, and you can too. If you struggle with losing your temper, feeling angry, frustrated, just kind of like a low under the surface, I don't know, anger at the world, at your family, like just one more thing is just going to put you over that edge. We can work on that. Maybe it's time for you. If you want to work on taking care of your health, maybe you have some weight you want to lose, you want to deal with stress, we can work on all of these things. So book a free strategy call. Let me help you. This is your year. Please send me your feedback. I love the feedback from these case studies. I would love to know which one resonates with you the most and what you'd like to hear next. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Families Matter Most podcast with Jen Dean, part of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. If you are interested in contacting Jen for one-on-one parent coaching, for speaking engagements, or just to get a little more information, please visit our website, familiesmattermost.com.